From a cozy home to a vicious cycle of abuse, my journey of self-rediscovery after escaping two violent relationships. I was left for dead, as she screamed I was worthless. Now I'm finally learning to love myself. What did it take to break free and find hope again? Years ago, I was married to a good man for 20 years. He is still a fantastic person and we communicate regularly. He is likely the only family I have, even though we are now divorced and he is with someone else whom I helped him find. The reality is that over time, he informed me that he was asexual. It turns out just asexual regarding me, while I discovered or admitted that I am in fact gay. We discussed separating because there was no desire for one another, and that had been the case for years. I longed to feel wanted. I felt so lonely, utterly empty and depressed. Although we were living a very comfortable life and I could have everything I desired, the one thing I wanted someone to truly want me, to desire me, and for me to reciprocate was unattainable. We talked about it and I began dating women to see if it suited me. He assisted in creating my dating profiles and even in selecting initial partners, much like a humorous big brother. We would laugh over the kitchen island during breakfast about my disastrous dates. It all seemed harmless, and I had not committed myself physically or emotionally to anyone else. In fact, I hadn't been physically intimate with him for nearly 10 years. He was not interested in me, and I largely attributed that to my own choices. Over the years, I gained a lot of weight and neglected my appearance. I did not look very feminine and made no effort to appear appealing. This realization struck me one day as I attempted to date. Of the people who expressed interest in me, I didn't genuinely want to be with any of them, although I am sure they were all lovely individuals. I started eating better, counting my macronutrients, walking frequently, and lost nearly 100 pounds over the course of a year. I also underwent significant facial surgery to correct aspects I disliked and to enhance features my doctor suggested. I had no idea how much that would change my life. Not long after my surgery and weight loss, I began receiving a lot of attention. Although my face was swollen for an extended period, sometimes it still swells in certain areas 2 years later. I met a woman online who lived in London while I was residing in Washington, D.C. She was an investment banker, and we quickly fell in love. I was a psychologist social worker and didn't value material wealth, although I now recognize that I was deeply privileged and somewhat ignorant. Life has a unique way of teaching us lessons we did not realize we needed. I disregarded all of my training in my fields of work and dove headfirst into the relationship, dedicating my entire life to this person who was infatuated with me and made me feel incredibly wanted and loved. I am sure many of you can anticipate where this story is headed, and predictably, it began to unravel quite quickly after I moved to London to be with her. The strange aspect was that I had spent decades feeling unwanted and unattractive, only to suddenly face issues at the opposite end of that spectrum. My therapist found it incredibly interesting, but I found it jarring. She controlled every aspect of my life: when I woke up, what I wore, who I spoke to, what I ate, where I went, and so forth. It was deeply abusive and controlling. Throughout it all, she was obsessed with the idea that other people might attempt to take me from her, which struck me as exceptionally bizarre. Why would anyone want this overweight and incredibly average woman in that way? Yet, she did. The woman I had internally remained unadapted to the external perception of the world. As expected, our relationship deteriorated. Well, it became evident after she physically assaulted me, breaking my ribs and sexually assaulting me while she was excessively intoxicated in the UK. It constitutes sexual assault if it occurs between women. It is classified as rape only if a penis is involved, as I learned. I was then stranded in London. I hold citizenship in both the UK and the USA with nothing to do, so I decided to train to become a barrister, a type of lawyer. This decision mainly provided me with something to occupy my time. During the period I was completing my conversion course, I dated a prominent politician and a few other men, testing the waters to determine if I truly was gay, which, as it happens, I am. While I was dating the politician, I met another woman. I wasn't cheating on him. We were not exclusive and he had not suggested that he wanted to keep me around. Coincidentally, this woman was also a banker. I swear, I genuinely try to avoid them, although I am sure they are all lovely people. Again, we rapidly fell in love, and I had not learned a single lesson from my previous experience, so I moved again. For reasons that will soon become clear, I cannot disclose where exactly I relocated, though she also works for a large non-governmental organization. While I was with her, I foolishly thought that lightning could not strike the same way twice. It is not really striking, is it, when it is an unconscious choice, and believed we would be overwhelmingly happy. The same issues began to resurface. Controlling behavior, jealousy in a way one would not think possible, kidnapping, physical abuse, and distancing me from my friends. Her paranoia led her to believe that everyone alive was going to try to sleep with me. It all became very detrimental for me, and I could not endure it any longer. I was forcibly kept in an apartment and beaten so severely that I broke my arm in a steel door while trying to escape. Eventually, the stress from continuous abuse caused stress-induced cardiomyopathy, commonly known as broken heart syndrome, and psychogenic non-epileptic seizures. My brain swelled and they threw me onto the street expressing disgust at my perceived weakness. They only found me attractive when I was strong and desired by others. When I was weak or unwell, they would unleash their fury and revenge. As I lay in an emergency room bed after consuming a substantial amount of benzodiazepines and liters of vodka, I do not have a tolerance for either. Seizing and falling into a coma, she called the doctors from home. I did not warrant any adjustment to her schedule. She demanded that they leave me to die while they were actively trying to save me. She screamed at them to call the police and have me thrown out onto the street in my current condition, deeming me worthless. Unbelievably, this did not occur just once. It happened repeatedly for an entire year, and I was determined to love them into becoming a better person. How naive I was. Eventually, I sought assistance from the police in this country, which I won't name. They called me names, laughed at me, and also threw me out into the streets taking the side of my abuser. The last incident was simply too much for me. I took every single medication I could find, drank liters of vodka. I do not even enjoy vodka, but when mixed with fizzy orange, it was easy for me to consume, and I cut my arms, legs, and torso over 600 times. The pain of merely existing, feeling utterly worthless and unwanted, while I gave everything, including my life, to love these people, was insurmountable. I was discovered, taken to the hospital, and the doctors saved my life, though they were also furious with me for not leaving her sooner. As I exited the hospital, she was waiting in the parking lot. I could barely walk and could not remember the days leading to that moment due to the seizures and coma I had experienced. Every movement was painful, as my clothing rubbed against each wound. She stood there, screaming at me in the parking lot, furious that I had embarrassed her once more. That was my breaking point. Completely devoid of any hope and lacking the energy to continue in this world, I called a women's helpline, and within hours, I found myself in a bed at a shelter for abused women. I have been here for some time. I will not disclose how long. And while I cannot speak for the other women here, I am healing. I am learning the reasons I permitted people to treat me this way, issues from childhood, and I am choosing myself. I am surrounded by other women and many children whom I cherish. We laugh, cry, converse, and I even play soccer with the kids occasionally. None of the other grown women here will play soccer, and I enjoy seeing the children laugh at how terrible I am at it. I believe I am in trouble for destroying a planter earlier with one of my kicks. My ex-husband remains a close and dear friend. He is such a good man, and I feel terrible for having let him down so horrifically. He loved me deeply in his own way, and I should have moved forward in this world with his support and blessing toward wonderful experiences and large families full of love and laughter. However, everything fell apart. We spoke earlier today for hours, and he had me laughing so hard that I hadn't done in so long, as I was always kept from the people I care about, and it felt so good. While the other women sleep, I like to stay up, watch television, which was never allowed, write a little, and clean. I am anxious about all of my tomorrows, but not due to uncertainty over what they may bring. Rather, I am no longer afraid of enduring torture and physical assault. I fear the same uncertainties as most of you face now, an unknown tomorrow that holds the possibility of sunshine rather than guaranteed meteor showers. All of this has profoundly humbled me. I am immensely grateful for the kindness of others and the smallest moments of joy. While I always thought I needed someone to desire me, in the end, I realized I needed to desire myself. That need, that want, had to originate within me for me, though I feel selfish in expressing this. Story 2. After overcoming my porn addiction thanks to her, I was devastated when she said, "You're the best man I've ever had," only to return for my attention while dating someone else. It ended with, "It's not your fault, it's mine," leaving me questioning everything. How do I move on from the memories of our happier days? I will begin with an explanation of the history of our relationship and how it ended up like this. This was a long-distance relationship, which I know many people do not favor, but I ask you to try to understand. We met online in a game and started off as friends when we connected on Discord. After a few days, we grew close very quickly, and I believe it was because we shared similar interests and got along easily. Soon after, we became a couple for about a year, and it improved even more as we could read each other's minds and set goals we wanted to accomplish when we finally met, encouraging each other to work hard. During this time, I was not focused in grades 10 and 11, but because of her, I ended up becoming focused in grade 12 and was admitted into university to pursue my passion in business, and she accomplished her goals as well. The reason I was not focused earlier was that I broke up with my ex in grade 10 after she cheated on me, and I felt completely down. I was addicted to pornography, struggled with sleep, and even experienced health issues with my heart. However, thanks to her, in grade 12 I improved, my health got better, and I entered university. The only problem was that I was still battling my addiction to pornography, which is a struggle many men face, especially following a breakup when you feel as though you may never find someone else. I realize it seems foolish in hindsight, but at the time, it did not feel that way. As we were approaching our anniversary, she discovered that I had issues. I shared my accounts with her to demonstrate my loyalty, even though she did not reciprocate, which I now recognize as a red flag, but I did not care at the time. She learned that I was being flirtatious online and that I was grappling with an addiction to pornography, which she viewed as cheating. I do not blame her at all for that perspective. I fully acknowledge that what I did was wrong, and I was never dishonest with her. She found out by looking through Discord. I intended to tell her, but honestly, how do you convey to someone you love that you have struggled with a pornography addiction for years, particularly when it is a difficult issue to overcome? She blocked me on all platforms, but the next day she added me back, saying, "I cannot let you go," and that she would give me another chance, but we would be just friends. This led to the next chapter of our relationship, which unfortunately declined from that point forward. I took this second chance seriously and dedicated about 3 months to improving myself, exercising, spending more quality time with family, eliminating every distraction that could lead me back to lustful thoughts, and taking long walks. During those months, she did not text me much, but I did not hold it against her. I simply hoped she would notice the effort I was making and understand how deeply I regretted my past actions. What kept me driven to overcome my addiction and become a better person was the thought of our shared goals and dreams. It is astounding to reflect on how I got into university, overcame my addiction, and got fit from working out, all because that relationship meant everything to me. However, she gave up shortly thereafter. She informed me that she was losing feelings, and I immediately attempted to explain my efforts, my achievements, and how I reached out to her each day, but she ignored all of it, almost as if she were not even interested in the person I had become. I respected her wishes and left her in peace. Soon after, I unexpectedly reconnected with a friend I had known in high school, someone I had assisted with her own relationship issues back then. We began talking, and I realized she was amazing, beautiful, intelligent, determined, and genuinely cared about me. Even when I was still lamenting over my ex, she kept encouraging me to move on, reminding me that I had changed and that my efforts mattered. After a few weeks, I began to like her, and she informed me that she felt the same way. Then, out of nowhere, my ex returned. At first, she claimed she merely wanted to have casual conversations, but that quickly changed. When I mentioned my new friend, she became desperate, possibly even jealous. She started telling me that I was the best man she ever had, that our dreams and goals together were significant, and she even requested to reconcile. She stated that if I did not leave my new friend, we would be finished forever. Being foolish and caught up in the memories of our past dreams and goals, I acquiesced. I ended the relationship with the new friend, something I deeply regret to this day. I did send her an email apologizing, but we do not speak anymore because I hurt her too much. Then my ex confronted me with the reality. On the first day we got back together, she revealed that she had been communicating with multiple guys, had even dated one, and only returned because her relationships with them did not work out and she missed what we had. She had waited for me to block my new friend before sharing this, knowing I would not have taken her back if I had known earlier. I still granted her another chance, trying to convince myself that perhaps I could make all this pain worthwhile. But it only deteriorated. A few weeks later, she formed a friendship with a guy she had been flirtatious and involved with before we even met. She re-established contact with him after his sister reached out, indicating he still thought about her. She assured me not to worry, but once again, I was the only person being completely honest with my social media, while she was concealing information. As time passed, her messages became less frequent, and she spent more time with him, and surprised she left me for him after just a week of rekindling their previous relationship. After a few weeks, they broke up because, according to her, he did something wrong and she returned to communicate with me again. She began manipulating me once more, saying things like, "You are the only one who makes me happy." I know you might wonder why I continued giving her chances, and honestly, it is because our dreams and goals together gave me a reason to live. Before her, I had nothing, no future, no ambition, just depression. I kept trying to make us work because I did not want to lose the motivation she had instilled in me, even though I realize now that is extremely unhealthy. We got back together, but she established a pattern. She would communicate frequently for a few days, then go silent, then say, "I need a break." I respected her space each time. Imagine the emotional turmoil I experienced after months of this on and off cycle. She did this 7 times. I should blame myself for staying, but what motivated me was the memory of our happy moments. She kept assuring me she would try to commit and improve, admitting that I was not the issue anymore. Rather, it was her lack of action behind her words. Meanwhile, I continued to work on myself, obtaining good grades, maintaining fitness, and walking daily, while she was trapped in a cycle of empty promises. Eventually, the emotional stress caused my heart issues to resurface. My sleep worsened, my breathing became labored, and I genuinely felt as if my heart were being damaged. My friends also noticed how adversely she was affecting me. Each time she returned, I was hurt even more. Ultimately, I resolved to end things and stop giving her further chances. She suddenly realized the extent of the damage she had caused and pleaded for another opportunity, claiming she would finally take action instead of merely speaking. I felt hopeful for a moment, but then another significant issue arose. She had been creating multiple gaming accounts to conceal the fact that she was playing with other men. One day, I caught her by making an alternate account myself, joining the games she was in and witnessing it firsthand. When I confronted her with screenshots, she broke down, admitted how terrible her behavior had been, and confessed that during the early stages of our on-and-off relationship, she had been talking to her ex, something she failed to disclose to me for 3 months while still giving me false hope. After all this, I was not the same. I had lost hope in her. I barely communicated, exchanging only brief conversations. One day she finally stated, "What we have is not healthy. It is not your fault, it is mine, and I acknowledge this." She expressed her desire to reconnect with God, to set new goals, and that it was time to part ways. Her final words to me were, "It has been lovely, thank you. You do not have to say anything special, just thank you. I genuinely mean it, goodbye." While also noting that throughout all these months, I had been wonderful to her, granting chances over and over, realizing that no other man would likely do this unless he was genuinely attempting to make things work despite all the pain. She deleted her Discord account afterward. I have omitted many small details, but those are the main points. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Frankly, I am seeking help on how to process all this because my mind is still in turmoil. I miss her, but I understand that I do not miss her as a person. I miss the happy moments we shared. I am fearful that I will never find something like that again, and I regret betraying the friend who was truly there for me. Thank you for taking the time to read this. I know it was quite lengthy. Story 3. When my ex left, I was crushed and begged, "Please don't go." Over 5 months of silence, I spiraled into isolation, battling my demons. Then the dreaded text, just checking if we could unblock. Was it guilt or genuine care? I'm left wondering if I was ever more than a memory. It will be a long post since I will be pouring my soul out. You can probably sense that I do not really have anyone to talk to, right? My ex and I broke up last year in July. We had been living together for 3 years. It was a strange beginning and had its odd moments. Firstly, we met through a friend I had a friends with benefits situation with who happened to be someone close to him. But we just clicked. It was a bit inappropriate of me, I know. That does not make it better, but I had been honest with the other guy from the very beginning. I ended up calling that situation off because with my ex, we just clicked. And one drunken party later, emotions escalated and we ended up having a physical relationship. It was chaotic at the time since his friends were not very friendly toward me. I could understand that, of course, but my overwhelming guilt did not improve the situation. So that pretty much summarizes the beginning. The relationship overall was great to me, at least. That is how I felt. Another complicated aspect was that I had been struggling with depression at that time, and that naturally had its effects. During our graduation period, there was a lot of partying, and yes, I developed a coping mechanism of escapism. I had some tendencies to drink more than I should. Thankfully, for lack of a better word, my aggression was always directed inward. I would express thoughts of self-harm, which I know despite being a cry for help was not healthy. I try not to judge myself for that now, even though I regret it. I see that it was the best I could do at the time. My ex complained a lot about that habit of mine, and gradually over time I stopped drinking. I loved him that much, but I felt like he was distanced despite my growth and change. It was awful. During that relationship, I lost my close friends, and before long he became my only friend. My life consisted of only work and him. A year before the breakup, we took a break. It was unwanted on my side, but like I said, he was pulling away. I mentioned the issue that I did not feel liked and did not feel wanted. He agreed, admitting that he wanted the relationship to end. He was looking for other places to live. I tried to talk to him, but he was not on the same page. And here comes another mistake on my part. I attended a gathering with some old classmates, and a guy, a friend of mine, made a move on me. To be honest, I did not expect it, but I did not stop it. I did not want it, but it felt like acceptance, a way to soothe myself, even if it was just temporary. A foolish decision, I know. I do not know what miracle occurred then, but the day after my ex approached me and said he had reconsidered, that we should try again. My heart sank. That was everything I ever wanted at that time, but now I had to turn him away. I did not. I simply could not. I remained silent. However, it came with a cost. I began losing sleep, panicking without reason. My mental state was in turmoil, but I kept trying to improve myself. I continued attending therapy and striving to grow. A year passed, we were okay now. We were calm, happy, and we had managed to achieve balance in the relationship. It finally felt like things were falling into place, and I told him. I revealed to him how I had kept quiet about something he would not want to hear. That is when chaos erupted, at least that is how it felt to me. We were lying in bed and I confessed about the kiss. He instantly pulled away and went outside for about an hour. He returned and told me this was it. It was hell afterward. I think it was largely due to his fear of being alone, and I was losing my mind trying to fix the relationship. I moved out, but I continued to show up every other day trying to sit down and talk with him. I am usually clingy, and in that situation I was really forcing myself to give him space even for that much. I started losing sleep, hardly eating, barely working. I constantly needed someone to talk to, thank God for my family who was there. But still, I was not doing well at all. When I reflect back on that time, I realize I was too pushy. But I also recognize that I did not understand what was truly happening. He was trying to leave. He kept saying, "I love you, I do not want to lose you," initiating intimacy and inviting me to family dinners. But he also mentioned things like how emotionally unstable I was, which I cannot deny, how unproductive I was, and how clingy I was again. Yes, I had this enormous fear of abandonment. A recipe for disaster. That lasted a month, then the disaster struck. I was utterly irrational. We were at our place. He was packing and I was unpacking. My home, my safe place, was crumbling. He would not stop to listen to me, and I did not even know what I was doing. I just needed to know that he would come back, that everything would be okay, completely unhealthy. I'm not saying it is acceptable or excusing my behavior in any way. I just really want to share. While I was being that way, I was also assisting him in moving his things to his car. I am not sure I can explain how irrational I was being, even to myself. By the time he gathered all his belongings, he was extremely angry. That was it for him, and my feeling that only made me hold on tighter. I got into his car and refused to exit until we talked. Then he called the police. I cannot say I blame him. After the police left, I completely spiraled. I was discussing thoughts of self-harm, crying, begging him to stay, but he said I had gone crazy, got into his car, and drove away. I did not hear from him for 5 months after that. I was entirely blocked. Again, I cannot say I blame him. During that time, I started taking medication. It was about time, right? I went to therapy, moved away, and completely isolated myself. I was so frightened. Maybe I still am, although I push myself to go out at least once a week. I have been listening to podcasts, reading books, trying to understand why I was like that, but I kept believing he would return. After all, he was my closest person, and I was his. Even if I went crazy, he still loved me, right? That is what he said. I was doing better before that call, honestly. I pretty much understood what led to that awful situation. I realized how my inability to take care of myself sometimes led me to hurt the ones I loved. I recognized that he also created an emotionally unsafe environment. I had begun to pull away in some ways, looking forward and seeking another path. And guess what? My phone lit up. It was him. Finally, after 5 long months of silence, I could say sorry. I could explain. I could demonstrate that I was better. I could talk to my friend again. It turns out he only contacted me to see if we could unblock each other, just in case. I tried 23 times to talk to him seriously, to ask if we would remain in each other's lives, but I do not think he understood me. Perhaps it was just guilt. I do not know. 6 months have passed. I still long for him. I have healed somewhat. Other aspects I could not. I mostly read during the day, waiting for September to start university again. But I have goals now. I am moving forward. I do things for myself. I maintain my peace. I strive to expand my knowledge and be more stable. I know that as I progress, life will become more significant and this ache will change its nature. But yes, I keep hoping for a second chance. Am I that forgettable? Did it all mean nothing? Was it so wrong that I could not make amends for it? I recently messaged him. We had a pleasant conversation, or at least I think so. I told him I missed our discussions. He did not know how to respond. That is okay. I do not expect him to. I did not bother him afterward. I needed to express that, and I do not regret being vulnerable. Even though I do not think I would do that again, not because of the outcome, but because I do not think it is appropriate anymore. It is not mutual. Like I said, I am not looking for excuses. I believe this is something I will live with and regret. I accept that I was wrong, and by being wrong, I hurt someone, and I try not to be that person anymore. I aim to heal that part of me. I know the relationship was unhealthy. I recognize what my contribution to that was. My therapist has helped me a lot to understand, but sometimes I wonder his perspective is that this was a conditional relationship toward me to begin with, and it was just inevitable in that environment. This whole month of me not being aware we were actually breaking up, being back and forth, etc., I am not here defending myself. It is fair to note that I did not mention his wrongdoings in this post, so it is not about that. Is it just a lie? Yes, I have the predisposition, I face the circumstances, this person hurt me, but many people experience pain, yet not many respond like that. All of that being said, I am not sure what I am searching for. I know what I did was unhealthy. I know I am lost, but am I bad? Am I that bad? My mind is spinning over the situation and I try to balance accountability and forgiveness simultaneously. And I still feel like what is done is irredeemable. Any thoughts would be appreciated, although I am well aware that the situation has its complexities or perhaps it does not. But yes, thank you for listening. Story 4. My girlfriend of 1.5 years suddenly declared, "We see eye to eye perfectly, but we aren't compatible," over a text. Just hours before we were planning our future together. Now she's scrubbed our memories from social media and cut all contact. What happened? I, a 25-year-old male, and my girlfriend, a 23-year-old female who will soon be 24, have been in a relationship for nearly 1.5 years. Initially, we were an unlikely couple due to our differences, especially regarding religion and family dynamics. She identifies as a progressive Christian with some doubts, while I am an empathetic agnostic in relation to her beliefs. She is the oldest child in a closely knit family, whereas I am the youngest in a quite dispersed family. Despite these differences, we decided after a month of dating in graduate school to try a long-distance relationship, which involved approximately 3 hours of driving each way. Although we experienced some growing pains, as this was our first serious relationship for both, it turned out better than I had anticipated. My girlfriend struggles with clinical anxiety and often had moments of panic concerning her family, our relationship, her dog, and other issues. However, she also mentioned that her anxiety was least noticeable when we were together. We alternated weekends visiting each other, occasionally spending a weekend apart, and took significant trips, including visits to national parks with my family and international trips as a couple. 3 to 4 months into our relationship, we confessed our love for one another and soon became each other's best friends. We shared numerous interests which made hanging out enjoyable. We texted throughout the workday and had very similar visions for our futures. It was what one might hope for, exchanging memes, enjoying the same movies, geeking out together, cuddling, being playful, hiking, and walking the dog together. While it was not perfect, one ongoing issue was that her mother was not particularly fond of me and did not hide it. While we both recognized that the distance and any tension were absolutely worth navigating. We both felt that her mother's opinion of me was completely unreasonable, given that I had always been polite during our interactions. To facilitate our communication, I created a shared calendar to plan which weekends we would spend together and the times we would be out of town. About 8 months in, we began discussing potential ways to move to the same city and agreed that it would be much easier for me to relocate to hers due to the flexibility of my job. I will return to that point shortly. Recently, things had been progressing positively. We took a trip to Europe planned well in advance, and it exceeded our expectations. The days leading up to it and our return were also enjoyable. Prior to our departure, I received approval to relocate later this year, so we plan to move in together around the 2-year mark of our relationship. After returning from our trip, we focused on our plans for togetherness, discussing our life as roommates and planning more trips. It was common for us to talk about potential states or countries we might consider moving to together or our desires for a wedding. We were a vocally affectionate couple. She frequently told me that I was her favorite person, that she was grateful for me, and that she loved me. I consistently responded with the same sentiment, expressing my love for her. The most recent expression of her love for me occurred last Friday night. The following day, Saturday, she sent me numerous photos from a family event for Easter. On Sunday, we conducted a video call to discuss a trip to New York City for our 2-year anniversary. The next day, Monday, we had an enjoyable conversation about politics and celebrated each other's fitness achievements. On Tuesday, we video called while shopping for rental options on Zillow. On Wednesday, we exchanged several memes and videos throughout the workday. However, on Thursday, she told me not to visit her city that weekend. This news shocked me completely. We had planned an entire weekend together, including RSVP'd events, and she informed me that morning via text. When I called her, she explained that she had been doing a lot of thinking. Even though we aligned on the major aspects of life, she felt we were incompatible in our daily habits. I inquired about the specific tendencies she was referring to, and she mentioned how I do not allow her dog on my couch or bed when he is at my apartment, that my cleaning standards are higher than hers, and that I do not exhibit enough enthusiasm around her family. She added that she makes most of the compromises in our relationship and that an ideal partnership should not require such compromises. I responded by acknowledging her perspective, but wished she had communicated these concerns more clearly earlier, as they seemed significant. I also stated that serious relationships inherently require compromise and that I was both willing and happy to accommodate the tendencies she had mentioned without any resentment. I pointed out that I already made my own fair share of compromises, such as relocating. This did not sway her, and she requested 2 weeks of no contact. It is worth noting that just 12 hours earlier, everything had suggested we were in a good place. She claimed to have raised these concerns previously, to which I replied that while she had mentioned them, we had identified common ground and she had not emphasized them as significantly important. Her demeanor changed completely. The sternness and formality in her voice during the call, along with her subsequent texts, were unlike her usual compassionate and empathetic manner. I suggested that it might be her anxiety speaking, noting that it is understandable to feel apprehensive about major steps in a relationship, such as moving in together. She dismissed it as anxiety and insisted that these were legitimate concerns she did not want to surface after we moved in together later in the year. I agreed to her request for no contact out of respect for her autonomy. Although I found it jarring and inconsiderate, I refrained from expressing that sentiment to avoid exacerbating what I believed to be her anxiety. The next day, yesterday, she turned off our location services, such as Find My Friends, and removed 3 posts from our Europe trip that were not even a month old from her Instagram. Today, she ended our relationship via a text message of approximately 50 words, stating that our relationship had been conducted on my terms and that she was no longer comfortable with that. When I asked for at least a phone call to discuss things further, she declined. I have shared this experience with numerous friends and family members, and it has become one of the most shocking moments of my life. I have gone from feeling stunned to confused, and I feel deeply insulted. Even if she had genuine concerns in our relationship, the drastic shift in her demeanor and communication style was deeply disconcerting. Additionally, her choice to text rather than engage in a meaningful conversation felt among the most personally offensive experiences I have encountered. I theorize that her anxiety may have caused her to have cold feet, fearing that anything that could potentially go wrong will. I also wonder if she is experiencing some form of an identity crisis. It seemed that she was more influenced by me in our relationship than the other way around, leading me to question whether she feels she has lost sight of her true self. It is important to note that I never asked her to change. She appeared eager to adopt some of my beliefs and habits when she sought my perspective. Lastly, I wonder if there were underlying immaturities I had overlooked. Compared to me, she seemed to lack some essential life skills such as cooking, cleaning, planning, and communication. I found this perfectly acceptable. I recognized our respective strengths and weaknesses and aimed to complement each other. She often spoke of lofty aspirations but seldom committed to developing the habits necessary to achieve them. I question whether she was more of a talker than a doer, and if this discrepancy affected her sense of commitment. Finally, her decision to remove me from her Instagram before breaking up only seemed very immature. I am doing my best to maintain a positive outlook. While this situation is painful, it is clear that she was not prepared for the responsibilities that come with a serious relationship, despite her claims to the contrary. What troubles me most are 1. The whiplash from over a year of positive and loving interactions suddenly shifting to a moment of cold disregard for my character, and 2. The abrasive manner in which she chose to handle the situation. I have been communicating with close friends and family, which has been helpful, and I am striving to maintain healthy habits, but I welcome any additional advice you believe is necessary. I currently lack clarification, closure, or an opportunity for dialogue to better understand the situation. Thank you. Story 5. My partner says I make him the bad guy for wanting to eat healthier, yet I'm struggling with OCD and eating disorders. I only want to set boundaries, but he claims I'm the one with issues. Is this love or manipulation? I'm at a crossroads here. Trigger warning: eating disorders. I would like to begin by expressing my sincere belief that my partner is the love of my life. Or was. I am already beginning to emotionally disconnect, which is unfair to both him and me. I understand that all couples experience challenges, and I genuinely do not know if this is merely a rough patch or if it is something I truly need to reevaluate. To provide some context, after engaging in a long-distance relationship, we ultimately decided to move in together last summer, 2024. I resigned from my job, relocated to a different country, committed myself to learning the local language, and took on a significant portion of the household tasks. Initially, everything was fantastic. We got along exceptionally well. He made efforts to help with housework whenever he could, and he kindly covered many of our expenses while I worked towards attaining a sufficient level of proficiency in the local language. I enrolled in intensive courses in order to secure employment. I enjoy spending time with his family, and I have a great rapport with his friends. At this stage, we have essentially been living as if we were married without actually tying the knot. We have just signed the lease for a new apartment together. However, for some inexplicable reason, it feels like everything is deteriorating. I had a therapist for a couple of years who assisted me in addressing childhood trauma and emotional abuse. Essentially, I would like to think that I have acquired some healthy communication skills during that time. Additionally, I previously worked as a teacher and have been told that I have the patience of a saint. Given this, I prefer to approach discussions with my partner in a calm manner when we both have the time and in a non-stressful setting such as at home. Yet these discussions often conclude with him saying, "Well, I guess now I am the bad guy." I have emphasized repeatedly that I have never used those words, and I do not want him to perceive himself as the bad guy. I am simply expressing how his actions have made me feel, and when he utilizes that phrase, I feel as though my feelings are being invalidated, and I am compelled to cater to his emotions instead. Here are some illustrations. 1. Healthy eatings. I have been diagnosed with obsessive-compulsive disorder (OCD). I experience obsessive thoughts related to specific subjects, such as contamination, and have previously struggled with eating disorders, where no soda evolved into no processed food, which transformed into no refined sugar, and so on. I mentioned that I would be delighted to prepare chicken nuggets in the oven, yes, the dinosaur-shaped ones, and I do not intend to eat them every day or even every week in our wonderful new apartment. My partner stated that we do not eat healthily enough and expressed a desire to establish some guidelines. 5 days a week, we could eat healthily, while on weekends, we could indulge in other foods. I explained that improving our diet is always a possibility, and I would be happy to include more nutritious foods, but I am not comfortable with establishing rules dictating what we should and should not eat and when we should eat certain foods. Furthermore, we already maintain a fairly healthy diet. We typically cook at home, using fresh, non-frozen ingredients, prepare our own sauces, purchase organic items when possible, and limit processed foods and sweets to occasional treats. Additionally, we live in Europe, where we walk virtually everywhere. He argued that having processed foods in the house would tempt him and hinder his ability to eat healthily. He believes that rules would help us adhere to our healthy eating objectives. He is aware of my past challenges with food and my OCD, so I stated that I need to establish boundaries concerning these foods. I cannot allow myself to overthink what I am eating. For instance, when I buy juice and he always comments on the sugar content, I have explained that it negatively affects me, or I will undoubtedly spiral back into disordered eating. I reiterated that I am more than willing to incorporate more nutritious food, but I cannot be told what or when we should eat specific things. He became upset that I was setting a boundary, then mentioned that I sometimes comment on his smoking habits, which bothers him. I replied that if he wishes to set a boundary regarding smoking, that is perfectly acceptable. If it is bothering him and causing discomfort, I completely understand. He inquired why I comment on his smoking, and I explained that early in our relationship, he aimed to quit and requested my assistance and reminders to stop smoking. He then stated that he would decide when and where he quit smoking, and because I established a boundary regarding our eating habits, he felt entitled to set a boundary about smoking. Otherwise, it would not be fair. I informed him that boundaries are established when something makes us uncomfortable, but that setting a boundary purely in response to mine concerning food does not sit well with me. It feels like retaliation. His response was to tell me that I need to begin addressing my internal struggles with food because they are not normal. Then he suggested that I can eat whatever I desire during the day, but for dinner, the one meal we share, it would be preferable to adhere to the rules. 2. Runnings. I have no enjoyment for running whatsoever. My partner consistently and repeatedly invites me to join him on runs, even after several discussions and arguments regarding the issue. I have conveyed that I do not enjoy it and would prefer to find another way to stay fit. After a run last year, I visited an orthopedic specialist and discovered slight damage to my meniscus and issues with my cartilage. I received a supportive knee brace to ensure proper alignment. Nevertheless, he insists that we can and should go running together. I have expressed many times that I do not want to continue discussing the matter, but he inevitably brings it up again. He disclosed that he believes I will eventually change my mind. He mentioned that if I tell him I never want to go running again, he will cease to ask. I should also note that he kindly purchased quality running shoes for me when I began exhibiting signs of knee pain. But now that I am not running, he suggests that I sell them. Once more, he finds himself portrayed as the bad guy simply for wanting me to be healthy and encouraging me to run, while I feel pressured to comply and feel disappointed in myself if I do not participate. At one point, he remarked that it was to his displeasure that I was not exercising enough, which led to yet another argument. Conclusion. These are merely a few examples. I feel deeply conflicted because at times he appears emotionally mature, while at other times he does not. He is incredibly sweet. He brings me coffee in bed every morning and gives me massages, though now that has also morphed into a tit-for-tat. He has supported us financially while I was enrolled in intensive language courses and searching for a new job, which I will be starting soon. He sends me pictures of dogs he encounters because he knows I adore them. He encourages me to pursue my hobbies, always serves me food first, and holds my hand as support when I navigate stairs due to my knee pain. I truly love him. Do you have any advice on how to navigate these challenging discussions with him? Am I approaching these arguments too assertively, and if so, how can I express my thoughts more effectively? Or is it ultimately time to start reconsidering our relationship? Much love and gratitude.